Hello, hello. This is the second installment of Peterson. We're going to pick right up on the third proposition. And to head off any confusion, I said that we would do this in 4 parts. I think that we'll get this done in 2. So the first 2 parts were done in 1 part. That show is an hour long, and so this is the second and hopefully last show. We'll see.
Right.
Everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it. He worships something.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
Peterson's third claim is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
And here I just have to say, his claims keep getting more and more trivial. I would say more and more combative, argumentative, but honestly, at some point, you just have to call it what it is. His claims just get stupider. And this is way stupid. I really don't, I don't know. This feels like the unraveling of Peterson in a way that we have not seen prior. This is Peterson's Biden moment. And I think also William Lane Craig's Biden moment as well, as we'll see as we go on. But this particular claim, everybody worships something, including atheists, even if they don't know it. This is kind of the Christian claim that everybody's religious, everybody believes in God. We just have to redefine religion to mean having no religion. We have to define believing in God as being without belief in God as believing in God, and not worshiping as worship. That's all you have to do, and then you've got it. And in this way, Peterson just kind of does the same boat type argument. Yeah, Christians worship things, but you atheists, you worship things too. Everybody worships things. This is a rhetorical maneuver to get out of what they see as a bad position, them worshiping something. And what they really should say is, no, religious people worship things, and we are the better for it. They shouldn't try to say everybody worships something. That creates a lot of issues down the road. But the first issue, which I think we'll come to, is, okay, if worship is something that atheists do, then what the heck do you mean by worship?
What's your take on this prompt?
Well, I'm open to persuasion about this. I don't have any firm opinion. As I say, all of these claims that Peterson makes are really not relevant to the truth of Christianity. So I don't know whether this claim is true or not.
How can he not know if this claim is true or not? How can he be open to persuasion? That sounds like a very good thing to say, but you reserve open-mindedness for things that make sense, right? This doesn't make sense, what's being said, and he should challenge the intelligibility of this. Rather than saying, well, it could be true. I don't know.
I do know that the theologian Paul Tillich defined God.
Okay, here we go. I do know who Paul Tillich is, and pretty much every pronunciation I've heard of is Tillich. Hard C, not Tillich, but I'm not German or whatever Paul would have been. Here comes another reference that not everyone may be familiar with. So how many are we up to now? We've got Plotinus 1. We've got the Westminster Confession. Now we're on to Paul Tillich. And this is who he reaches for to describe what God is and what worship is. When is he ever going to refer to the Bible for any of this?
As one's object of ultimate concern. And so, by that definition, everybody has some ultimate concern and would therefore believe in some sort of God object, some object.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm going to challenge that, though, quite vigorously. Not everyone has an object of ultimate concern. It's just not true. It sounds true-ish. It sounds like it should be true until you really think about it. You, the listener, very likely do not have an object of ultimate concern. You have many concerns, but I doubt that the average person has some kind of formalized priority list. And this one thing, this is at the top, this is above everything. People, for instance, used to say, for me, it's God, family, country, or sometimes God, country, family. They be careful to put God first. Family might get third billing in that. Sometimes they would get no billing at all. I don't think that this is an accurate list of ultimate concerns. People do not know. They have slogans. We don't have that kind of priority list. And so if I asked you, right now, what is your matter of ultimate concern? I bet it would take more than a few seconds for you to try to come up with something, and you'd think the wheels would spin. And the most likely thing that you would say is, I don't know, I'll get back to you on that. My dog, who just exited my room, I can assure you, he does not have any matters of ultimate concern. I mean, he wants to eat, sleep, he wants to poop, he wants to play. Are any of those matters of ultimate concern for the dog? No. Now, as a human animal, I contend that you probably don't have any greater matters of ultimate concern in the grand scheme of things. Most people are not ideologues. My matter of ultimate concern could be my wife, except when it's not. Could be work, except when it's not, and it seldom is. It could be health, except when it's not. I would not be able to tell you that. And so this assumption that sounds deep and sounds true, but isn't, that everyone has a matter of ultimate concern, therefore they all have a God, is just deeply wrong. And in this debate, although I'm not sure, I don't recall if it's in the set of clips that we're looking at right now, that is very much challenged, and I think challenged well and shown not to be the case. So let's move forward with this.
Of ultimate concern. So I think that Peterson's view is defensible.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. I really want to let this play out some more. But the only way you can say it's defensible is if you accept as a definition of God, which, by the way, that wasn't the question. Peterson didn't say everybody worships God. He said that everybody worships something, even atheists, even if they don't know it. Let me also say, if you can worship something with a true definition of worship and not know it, then there's something wrong with your definition. The worship is very bad. You accidentally worship. You can't accidentally worship. And so your definition is very, very bad. But what has to happen is you have to redefine, to get where Craig is, you have to redefine God as the matter of ultimate concern instead of God being a person. think about how Craig passionately defined God in our last episode. All right? He's defining attributes of the person of God. Here, he's willing to punt down to, it's just a matter of ultimate concern. That's what you have to do. You have to redefine the whole thing in order to make this a plausible statement. And Craig doesn't believe that God can be redefined that way any more than you or I do.
Certainly one that many have held to. So I'm open-minded on this.
That's a good response. There's some confusion back and forth with some of the atheists that jump up, assuming worship means pray to, bow down to, formally sacrifice to, whereas Peterson does take more of the approach that you're saying here, kind of an ultimate concern that guides my life, like a higher authority that I attend.
Okay, Sean, this is not a problem of the atheists around the circle. They're using worship. They're understanding worship the way statistically everybody understands worship. The only people who don't understand worship that way are academics who are trying to wriggle out of a problem in a debate that they're losing. Okay, so you can lawyer your way into some other definition of worship if you like, but that's your problem. That's not the problem of the people you're talking to. And as even in this clip will show, no, people are not misunderstanding what Peterson is saying. They are interacting with his definitions, asking him to clarify and showing conclusively that his definitions are wrong. So this is not one of those silly atheists. They're just going with a traditional definition instead of this deeper, higher meaning of worship, which neither one of the two of you actually believe.
Yeah, so, that's clear. The students have just misunderstood him.
No, they haven't.
Yeah, and some of that comes out in the dialogue, which I think is interesting because in that sense, I think he's probably right that we all have some guiding higher call. Maybe it's a human relationship, maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a profession. There's some higher guiding principle that motivates us.
Nope, just talked about that, but let me show you the absurdity of these kinds of redefinitions. You're worshiping the Shure SM7B. All right. Sean is using an SM7B. I don't know what Craig is using, possibly a lav that'll pin on his coat. Could be some type of lav. There could be a mic off in the distance. His audio isn't great. But you see, Sean, you are allowing yourself to be photographed with the SM7B in the picture. Now, it is an iconic microphone. It has been around for a long time. Mine has finally suffered enough so that I won't use mine anymore. I've had mine for 25 years of hard use and moving and things like that. Fantastic microphone. Some people in my world even revere the microphone, and I would define worship as anything that you allow yourself to be photographed with close up. Now, you've got other things in your background there, but those things aren't close to you. The microphone is the closest thing to you, and whatever the closest thing to you is when you are photographed is what you worship. Therefore, I am absolutely correct in saying you are worshiping the Shure SM7B.
And if he's right, then the question would not be, or the question would be, everybody worships something. So it's not, do we worship? It's what do we worship? So if he's right, yeah. Christians and atheists both worship.
He's not right. You know it. But still, that wouldn't be the question. The question would be, what do you prioritize? Okay, if you want to say, if you want to talk about priorities, we can talk about priorities. If you want to change the definition of worship to whatever you prioritize, I don't want to talk to you at all because you're being extremely dishonest. Okay, we can talk about priorities. There's an interesting conversation to be had in what one prioritizes. But to try to score some kind of gotcha points on an atheist by saying, well, I've redefined worship to prioritize, and so you worship, so there. It makes people want to verbally punch you in the face, which happens to Jordan Peterson repeatedly.
Something. The question is, what is the orientation of the worship or direction of our life?
No, what do you prioritize? What do you consider important? We don't need to bring worship in here because none of those words mean worship.
And I think what's so fascinating about this is, at least biblically speaking, the ultimate sin is idolatry, which is to worship something.
Okay, I don't mean to get overly theological, but what? So the ultimate sin is idolatry? The ultimate sin? Because I thought the ultimate sin was blaspheming the Holy Spirit. You can't come back from that. Of course, since Old Testament Hebrews didn't have a Holy Spirit, I don't know what their ultimate sin would have been. I mean, idolatry maybe, but they could get killed for homosexuality or witchcraft, so maybe that was the ultimate sin. Anyway, moving on.
Other than the Creator. So I don't know if Peterson did this intentionally or not, but it kind of invites people to ask the question, what am I worshiping? What's the ultimate commitment of my life, and why? And that's where I think the format of Jubilee invites like debate and proving he's wrong rather than leaning in and asking questions. So
well, they did lean in and ask questions. They asked, what the fuck are you smoking? Actually, they didn't ask that. They said, what do you mean by worship? Okay. They did ask the questions. So this kind of denial and reinterpretation of the events that happened that we all saw, suggesting that the atheists didn't lean in and ask the right questions, is absurd. They simply didn't buy into Peterson's false framing, and we're not buying yours either.
For anybody watching this, rather than taking sides, just ask the question, what does Peterson really mean? Could he be right about this? And what might my ultimate concern be? That would be my takeaway for people watching this.
Yeah, in other words, don't really interact with the batshit crazy things that Peterson said, but rather ask different questions that would make sense, as if Peterson is the catalyst for you asking reasonable questions. No, we're talking about Peterson right now. You get that, right? And as we're talking about Peterson, by extension, we're also talking about you. Because you're defending this stuff. And I understand that Sean is working real hard to try to find a middle space between Craig and the Christians, utilizing the nonsense of Peterson to try to say that everybody's good, except those silly atheists who didn't lean in and ask the right questions. Yeah, we don't have any need for that kind of framing. It's false, and you are siding with the wrong team.
Yeah, very good.
You're saying atheists worship things or people or places, whatever.
Okay, so that's a question, right? You're saying that atheists worship. Okay, we're leaning in, right? we're asking the questions.
You're saying atheists worship things or people or places, whatever. Can you be very clear about your definition of worship?
Okay, again, we're leaning in and asking the right questions. This is Danny. What questions, Sean, would you rather him ask? Is this not the right question? Could there be a more right question? at this point because I can't think of what the more right question would be.
And-
Attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for.
And this is pretty much the beginning of the end of Peterson, as far as I'm concerned. He gets asked to define his terms. He really hates that. He likes to say things that are unchallenged, unquestioned. You know, he's the professor. He's the great man. And you approach the great man with deference, and you mull over the things the great man says. You don't push back on it, even in debate. So the great man has spoken. Worship, attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for. Am I worshiping right now? Am I worshiping this podcast? I'm attending to it. I'm prioritizing it because I am doing this and not some other thing. I'm sacrificing for it because I'm not having nearly as much fun doing this as I would doing some other thing. So, am I worshiping? Am I?
Okay, that's it. That's your understanding of worship.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay, thank you again for the clarification. This is not Danny coming in with a presupposition. This is Danny making sure he understands Peterson's idea of worship. Let's see if he interacts with that.
Okay, do Catholics attend to Mary?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so do they fit that description of worship?
Yes.
Okay, and that, my friend, is all that there is about Peterson. That was the end of Peterson. That was the end of his sanity. that was just the end of everything. What Danny is doing, I've seen interviews with Danny, but I recognize this even during the first watch. His point about Mary, he could have chosen anything. But he's saying, okay, we'll take your definition. The Catholics seem to feel this way about Mary, so are you suggesting that Catholics worship Mary? The purpose of that is not to get Jordan Peterson to say, yes, Catholics worship Mary. He knows that Jordan Peterson doesn't believe that. It's, in fact, to bring up a thing that he knows Jordan Peterson doesn't agree with. So what Jordan Peterson should have done is say, of course, Catholics don't worship Mary. Let me restate my explanation. And he could have done that and should have done that. Danny's giving him ample opportunity to do that. And so he starts with Peterson's explanation. Okay, to attend to something, do Catholics attend to Mary? Yes. So that qualifies as worship for you? Yes. And it takes Peterson a moment. But once he realizes what Danny just made him say, it's over. Rational discourse is over. It's out. It's left the building if it was ever there, and you can see Peterson's face as he kind of sort of realizes what happened. Now, what Peterson doesn't like to do, again, a thing that Peterson doesn't like to do, is admit that he's wrong or to admit that he misspoke. So he's never going to do that. So what have we seen him do in the past? He starts becoming pedantic, starts becoming very aggressive, anything to change the subject, turn the tables, and make the questioner the one who is at fault somehow. So let's listen to this again, and we will watch this entire scene play out. I just wanted to cue that up for you, and then I'll have a comment after that.
That's it. That's your understanding of worship.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay, do Catholics attend to Mary?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so do they fit that description of worship?
Yes.
So you would say Catholics and other people that revere Mary, like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
Well, they might not put her in the highest
But you would put
place.
it that way.
No,
You just said it. Now you're taking it back
there's
now?
still a hierarchy.
Okay, there's a hierarchy, but within
And
the
there's something at the top.
all right, you can worship things
Mary is
below.
quite a ways up the hierarchy, but not at the top.
Let's go over your definition of worship again. What's your definition of worship?
Attend to,
Attend to.
prioritize,
Do
and
Catholics
sacrifice for.
what do Catholics attend to? Do they prioritize Mary over all other human beings?
No, I didn't say overall, did I? I didn't add that to my definition.
You understand?
I said there was a hierarchy as well.
You attend the
So you
Catholic.
can attend to something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
Okay, now you're adding stuff to the definition, but your original
I
definition.
added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
Are you
just
familiar?
didn't understand it.
Are you familiar with the?
I'm sorry. It's really hard to watch this. This is cringe, but Danny is not misbehaving here. This is just Peterson. You can see it on his face. I'm gonna play that last little bit again. I just want you to watch. I just want you to watch Peterson. He understands what's happened now. And he's going through all of his baggage of tricks, and he's got to say, no, I said that from the beginning. Well, actually, you didn't. As if Danny misspoke. No, he didn't. You added hierarchy, and so now that has to be something that Danny has to parse out and figure out what you mean. And we've got to get down to, well, you're just a stupid atheist kid. You just misunderstood it. This is Peterson. Let's see it again though. But look at you can look at the freeze frame on his face now, but it's actually worse than that. I'll just go back a couple of frames here.
Something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
And now you're adding stuff to the definition, but your original
I
definition.
added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
Are you
Just
familiar?
didn't understand it.
Are you familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure,
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either
it,
you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk to
not.
you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video,
You're really quite something. You are.
aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Okay. I love this so much. Obviously, I love this so much, but I do want to crawl through it a little bit, and just explain why. Because there are a lot of little things that happen in this not so conversation that it's easy to miss. I think most skeptics looking at this probably didn't miss most of it. Christians probably did miss most of it. And so I just want to go through it. There may be something here that you miss, and maybe I can help you understand it. And at the very least, help you understand the divide between the people who hated this and the people who loved it. I think that's kind of important. So we're going to just kind of slow walk a little bit through here.
What's your definition of worship?
Attend to,
Attend to. Do
prioritize, and
Catholics
sacrifice for.
what do Catholics attend to? Do they prioritize Mary over all other human beings?
No, I did.
Now, what Peterson had said before this is he added hierarchy. There's a hierarchy. And so now Danny is adding, okay, do they prioritize over all other human beings? He's trying to work with the definition, with the words that are coming out of Peterson's mouth. Peterson just keeps changing them and adding to them, and it's hard to keep up. But if you missed that before, that's That's why Danny changed the statement to fit with Peterson's change.
Say overall, did I? I didn't add that to my definition.
You understand.
I said there was a hierarchy as well.
You attend.
Okay, hang on. There's a hierarchy. So what does the hierarchy mean? What does that add to the definition? Because at first the definition was attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for. And then when he said it again, after Danny asked for more clarity, attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for, as if Danny was a slow, dull kid. He repeats the same thing. Danny shows where that is an inadequate definition, and then Peterson adds, there's a hierarchy. Mary is, quite high on the hierarchy, but she's not at the top. Now, what does not at the top mean? So now, have we changed the meaning of worship to whatever's at the top of your priority list? Because that is not what you said before. So you can only worship one thing, and not many things. That's kind of new as well, and we'll see where that falls apart, I think, a little bit later. But now that we've added hierarchy, we no longer know what he means by worship, because his definition has changed. Is it the top 3 things on the hierarchy? Is it the top 5 things? Is it the top 2? Is it the top 1 thing? What do you mean now? What now qualifies as worship?
So you can attend to something trivially, or you...
Okay. So how trivially can you attend to something before it doesn't count as the attending to something that qualifies as worship? Right? What if you attend to 3 things deeply? Are you worshiping the 3 of those things, or just the thing at the top? And who gets to decide whether you're attending to something deeply or trivially?
can attend to it deeply.
And now you're adding stuff to the definition, but your original
I
definition.
added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
That was not at the beginning, sir. That was at least the 3rd round. And this whole levels of attending to things, you're just now adding to, which is what Danny is referring to. Now you're adding things. We've got to refactor the whole thing based on deep attendance or trivial attendance.
Are you
Just
familiar?
didn't understand it.
Are you?
That green persimmons. Look them up if you're not familiar. He looks like he's sucking on a mouthful of green persimmons right now. And Peterson is trying to lawyer his way out very badly and very transparently. And when they show wide shots of the room, everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. And at this point, I think this is the first time in the night where Peterson fully sees it too.
Familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're in.
Okay, and so those who are maybe doctrinally unsure about all of that, like me, so you've got 2 things. You've got the Immaculate Conception, and you've got the other thing. So Mary has a child without sex with a man, but there's also this view that Mary herself was divinely conceived, so that she also, wasn't tainted by sin in some ways. Those have 2 different names. But the reason this is kind of important is because Danny is still trying to show the relevance of his point that Catholics have a very worshipful attitude toward Mary. They absolutely fit this definition. And he's trying, this is not a gotcha moment. He is trying to get Jordan Peterson to see that so that Peterson can offer a more useful definition. But Peterson's locked in now. he's not listening anymore. There's no conversation at all. This is just Peterson saying, "How can I get out of this?" And how fast.
Interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure,
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because
And at this point, of course, he knows exactly why he's being asked that.
okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this
Okay. Before you hear the reaction, just kind of look at the room and then listen to the response.
you're a Christian?
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where.
Right. Because they all know. They all know what this event is. So does Peterson. He knows exactly what documents he signed when they promised him a boatload of cash. He knows exactly what Jubilee is. And he still thinks that he can toe tap out of declaring whether he's a Christian or not. So, of course, these people, McDowell is going to talk about this, but let me just say, these people, some of them flew great distances to be here. They were not told who they would be talking to. It was just a prominent Christian versus 20 atheists. They flew there to have a conversation with Christians. That was the thing. That was the invitation they got. It's in print. That was the name of the YouTube video, One Christian versus 20 Atheists. They changed the name of the video because of this moment in the video when Peterson backed out and claiming that he was a Christian. So this is why the audience is reacting this way. They're not being juvenile. They're saying, what the actual fuck?
Claimed that?
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't.
Okay. Again, Danny was not disrespectful here. He said, isn't this Christian versus atheist? Jordan Peterson is just lying because he still feels the wall against his back. He will say anything at this point to get out of it and not admit that he was wrong or being dishonest. He realizes the problem, and he's just trying to do his normal dance to get out, and Danny will not let him. So he's asking very basic questions. My response would have probably been way harsher at this point than Danny's. He's like, this is Christian versus atheist, right? And Peterson is like, I don't know. At this point, the organizers should have walked on stage, disconnected Peterson from his mic, and told everyone to go home. That's what should have happened. They weren't about to do that. They know what kind of views this was going to get. But I just want you to see this as it happens.
This is Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Okay. Again, that sounds like a smartass remark. It's not a smartass remark. This is literally where they're supposed to be. This is what all the cards on the table say. You know, this is Christian versus atheist, right? I don't know. You don't know where you are. And so that gave Peterson his opportunity. The opportunity that he was looking for. He looks like a caged animal, a trapped animal. And he's just ready to strike. And so here's his moment. Don't be a smartass, because I'll stop talking to you, as if that's a punishment. Peterson, when is the last time you talked to any of these people, as in a real conversation? I'd say that you haven't. You're just being called out for it now. It's just becoming obvious No.
Well,
And I mean
either
it,
you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell
could be-
you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I
private.
was invited to talk.
Hang on. Your Christianity is private. Now, frankly, I would never go up to someone on the street and ask, are you a Christian? They don't have to tell me, and it can be private. I wish it was private. I wish Christians took the attitude that it's private. But Jordan Peterson is not private. He's not a private man. He's a public figure, and he's being paid a boatload of money to be here to talk about Christianity. It's not private. That is simply a lie in this case. A transparent, embarrassing lie, which he will be punched in the face by many YouTubers about, including Sean, here in a moment. And so if Christianity is a private, personal thing to you, why are you here representing Christianity? Why are you constantly flogging Christianity in the public sphere? But now when it's gotten you into some real trouble and you're talking to people who are smarter than you, now it's private.
To a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think every Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian? I was under the impression
hear that
I
little
was
moan?
invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
Again, not nearly as smart as it should have been. This is the mild version of this. And I actually think it's the most prescient thing that was said in this whole debate. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video. You're in the wrong video. Jordan Peterson, you can see by his demeanor, by his body language, by his seething, snarling contempt throughout this thing, that he is definitely in the wrong video. You see, Jordan Peterson, he's a great man. He's a great man. And, teens like Danny, those are his people. Those were his audience. He thought he was coming in here as a rock star, as the hero, which is how the organizers present it, actually. He thought this was going to be a cakewalk of fawning fans. I don't know how he came to that conclusion, except that he read his own press. And he is an old man who has great man syndrome. And suddenly, people aren't treating him like a great man here. They're actually debating him not as a superior, but as an equal in rapid form, because that's the format of here, of this Jubilee show, very rapid back and forth. And he was not ready for any of this. He is definitely in the wrong video.
Invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing.
And with that, we have, a lot of people picking sides. Oh, he shouldn't have said that. No, he should have said that. And in fact, that wasn't even a smartass comment. It was just an incomplete comment. What he was saying is, you're supposed to be a Christian. That's what we were told, but you're not a Christian. You're not an atheist. And so you're not anything right now. How can we talk to you? How can we form any kind of idea about what you're saying when you change your ideas every few seconds? You change definitions when it becomes suitable for you. 1 minute you're kind of a Christian, the next minute you're not, and so yeah, you're kind of nothing when it comes to labeling the type of person you're supposed to be. And don't at me about labels. The whole thing is about labels. 20 atheists, 1 Christian. Except Jordan Peterson is quite nothing.
Right, you're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Dr. Craig, this clip has gone viral for a bunch of reasons. There's a bunch of angles and critique we could give, but I'm really curious your takeaway from it.
Okay. So I said earlier that this is not just Jordan Peterson's unraveling. I think this is Dr. Craig's unraveling too, for many of the same reasons. And so we've seen bits and pieces of it throughout up to this point. And now we're going to see a lot more of it.
I think that this kid just exemplifies the attitude of trying to have a gotcha moment. He's not really interested in exploring the truth of Peterson's claim.
Okay. You would have to assume that there's some truth of Peterson's claim. You have assigned a harsh motive to a person that you've seen a 30-second clip of. He's just looking for a gotcha moment, not there for a really deep exploration. Can we say this another way? Jordan Peterson, he's just looking for a gotcha moment on these atheists. He's not there to explore the truth of their claims. Would that work for you, Dr. Craig? No, it wouldn't. And the reason is because William Lane Craig is also an old white great man whose best days are long behind him. He also has great man syndrome. And I know that he has got to be stinging from all of the low bar bill kind of comments. He said what he said, and people reacted to it, even some Christians, and he's been given opportunity by people like Alex O'Connor, very reasonable people, many by other Christians, opportunities to rehab his comments, and instead he doubled down on it. And to his shock, people did not treat him with fawning adoration as Sean does, because he's got great man syndrome, and it's a shock to his system when people don't respond that way. They're not supposed to respond that way. Even if you think he's wrong, you should come at it with a great deal of respect and deference for the great man. You don't try to show up the great man. This is a very Asian kind of idea. You don't try to show up a person who's older than you, an elder. They've earned the right to be wrong, and you still bow, right? And that's what we're looking at here. So when great man Craig looks at great man Peterson, the problem he sees is not the nonsense coming out of Peterson's mouth and the gaslighting that Peterson is doing. He sees this kid. He's in his 30s, folks. He sees this kid as disrespecting a great man. That's Craig's problem.
Really interested in exploring the truth of Peterson's claim. He just wants to say gotcha. And even if the kid is right,
notice how he keeps saying the kid. But this statement here, very revealing. I didn't mean to interrupt it. Actually, I did.
really interested in exploring the truth of Peterson's claim. He just wants to say gotcha. And even if the kid is right, that Peterson's definition of worship would imply that Catholics worship Mary, so what?
Okay, let's just pause there for a moment. So first of all, Craig does understand where the point is going. And we are looking at Craig in a slightly different light now. He's not trying to see where the truth lies. He's saying, even if Danny was right, it wouldn't matter. Big deal. But you see, if Danny is right, Peterson is very wrong. But William Lane Craig doesn't want to deal with that. Even if Danny's right, it wouldn't matter. He's still a smartass. Let's hear that out. Look at and look at Craig's face as he talks, because he's not that smiling, happy guy anymore. He's also angry and filled with contempt, snarling contempt. I wish I could do a side-by-side of some of Craig's expressions and some of Peterson's expression, because at some point they just morph into the same guy.
That Catholics worship Mary. So what? How does that affect anything except to say that perhaps the definition is inadequate? And I think you and I would agree that indeed the definition is inadequate.
In other words, Danny is right. So what Craig demonstrated is he understood the point Danny was making. He understood the trajectory of where Danny was going, and he agrees with Danny. And yet he's defending the great man.
That worship involves taking God as the object of ultimate concern. And that's certainly not what Catholics do with Mary. But the more fundamental point is, I think Peterson's right. The kid is a smartass.
He's right. So Craig admits fully, I agree with the kid. He's right. So what? Fuck that guy. He's a smartass. The ultimate problem, the real problem for Craig, is not that Peterson is spewing falsehood, not that he's giving bad philosophy, not that he's giving bad theology, not that in this debate he is shown to be incorrect in all his ways. No, the problem is that kid is a smartass. Right? It's kind of like, maybe filing a police report, nearly 100 years ago, and saying, yeah, my client was wearing a white hood as a member of the Klan, and yeah, my client lit the torch and burned the house down, but the real problem is that darky punched my client in the face. That's what we're talking about here. I mean, that's the essence of it. We don't care about the truth of the matter. We just don't like the way he treated a great man and made him look stupid.
He's not really interested in the questions of truth. He just wants to.
Wait, is he talking about Peterson? No, he's still talking about the kid. Sorry.
To show up Jordan Peterson and expose that Peterson is committed to Catholics worshiping Mary. Who cares?
I don't know. Maybe someone committed to truth. The proposition's given. This is a proposition that Peterson has given. Are you telling me that it's wrong for them to try to show that Peterson's proposition is incorrect? No, it's not. The problem here is William Lane Craig. He doesn't give a shit about the truth of any of it any more than Peterson. By the way, you Christians who seem to be hesitant about using swear words, you're certainly not hesitant about ad hominems. William Lane Craig, your boy, he called this guy a smartass. Same as an asshole, really. Hey, Craig, you who cares nothing about truth, maybe you're the asshole.
So I think that's a fair take. One perspective I might add is...
And here comes Sean, who is kind of horrified. He's got some more horrified to do before this is over. He's going to try to come in and, like Luke, paste over the differences between actual real Christian doctrine and the vomit that is coming from Peterson and now Craig and try to make it seem like, no, there's no disagreement here. So good job, Sean. Let's see where you're going.
From what I understand, they originally called this video One Christian versus 20 Atheists. And the atheists who came were told this was going to be a Christian. So there's a little bit of they're finding this out in the moment. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and Jubilee,
Okay, so let's say that Craig didn't know that. I do not know that he didn't know that. He says, it never comes up whether he knew it or not, but he knows it now. Is he going to say, oh, well, then maybe I was a little bit harsh. Maybe I was a little bit hasty in my judgment? Hell no.
the way it's set up, I love it. I watch a bunch of them. I think it's fascinating, but it invites a sense of like, you have the clock for a moment. So you've got to make your point fast or you're going to get voted off. But certainly he could have gone about it differently as some of the other people in this Jubilee did and invited more of a conversation than a gotcha moment. You know, in some ways,
There's no real conversation. I'm sorry. The only conversations in this entirely Jubilee video are those where Peterson believes that he can hold forth and be a professor who is not strongly challenged. That's the only kind of conversation he is really interested in. And so I actually think Danny did make the best of his time. I think he did better than any of the others who had a quote-unquote conversation.
Bill, this is maybe the most interesting clip to me because this moment was kind of inevitable. As you know, you've been on stage with Peterson, I believe, in different settings that people have been wondering, where does he stand on God? Where does he stand on the resurrection? Even atheists like Dawkins and O'Connor have been in conversation with him, pressing him, does he think these stories are actually true? And he's been evasive for a while about his beliefs. And if you're not a Christian, that makes sense. Or if you're a Christian, it's fine to be evasive about like the imprisoned spirits in 1 Peter chapter 3. But if you're a Christian, you cannot be evasive about professing Christ before people.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that is...
Yeah, that's true. So I was wrong. I shouldn't have said what I said. Is he about to say that?
very clear. So to me, I think this made it clear for those of us who wondered where Jordan Peterson stands. He's not there yet, implying I hope he gets
careful
there.
not to judge.
Okay.
Hang on. The man who has seen all of about 30 seconds of Danny judged his entire motives and pasted an ad hominem on him with a swear. He had no problem rushing to judgment there. He's been following Peterson for a long time. He knows exactly what's going on with Peterson, and yet right now he's saying, "Oh, no, we can't judge. Don't be so hasty with judgment." Okay.
Sean, we don't know his heart.
Hang on. What does knowing his heart have to do with anything? Sean speculated, I think correctly, that Peterson is not a Christian. But if the only way to know that is we don't know his heart, then no one ever knows whether anyone is a Christian or not. Anyone. Christian, you can come to the board and tell me you're a Christian, and I would say, well, I don't know your heart. So I don't know if you're a Christian or not. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It doesn't, because theologically, the only one who knows the heart is God. All you can judge is the outward appearances, but God knows the heart. And yet, we should be able to know whether someone is a Christian or not. But in this moment, William Lane Craig wants to throw out all doctrine, all theological proposition. So far, Peterson hasn't said anything theologically correct. And he has all but denied many important aspects of Christianity, or redefined them in a way that a Christian certainly would not understand. William Lane Craig knows this all too well. He's willing to judge people he doesn't like but has no experience with. But with Jordan Peterson, we can't rush to judgment. We don't know his heart. Suddenly, we don't know his heart is important. Where was the knowledge of the heart? Where was the importance of that when you were calling Danny a smartass? You know, you didn't give a damn about his heart. But the great man, yeah, he said some things that don't make sense, but you don't know his heart.
He's certainly evasive. And I think that...
Okay. I knew this one was going to go long. He's certainly evasive. Now, a man who has made a career out of being evasive in debates, I wonder what he thinks about a person who is being evasive about important things.
I don't know his heart. He's certainly evasive. And I think that that's deliberate. Myself, if I were his publicity agent, I would say,
don't be evasive if you're a Christian. Because this is what Craig would say to him if Craig had the opportunity.
Be as evasive as you can.
Oh, boy. Oh, no. Oh, no. Who could see this coming? Poor Sean. Sean is thinking, where's the off button? It goes from here to...
I would say, be as evasive as you can. Do not answer the question. So long as he keeps evading it, that evokes the mystery, that promotes the controversy. You said this is one of the most watched clips in the whole program. Why? Because of this evasion, where if he were to just come out and say, I am a Christian and I believe in Jesus, my Lord, the mystery would be gone, the controversy over. It would be boring after that. So this is very deliberate, I think. And we have to be careful not to judge whether in his heart of hearts, he hasn't yet come to believe in Christ, but he's still a baby Christian. And
hang on. You said you don't know his heart, and now you're calling him a Christian. And Danny's an asshole. Peterson is a Christian. How do we get to either one of those conclusions, especially after what you said? Yeah, Danny's right. He's an asshole. Peterson, he's a Christian, although he refuses to answer the question like someone who isn't. And I would tell him, absolutely, just never answer the question. Because you could lose money that way. You could lose audience that way. Craig knows this. Craig knows that, not being evasive can cost you. And so he's extremely evasive quite often on some things, especially when it comes to the fundy Christian community. He knows who his audience is. So he's got to be very evasive. And so, yeah, he's telling Peterson, never give up the secret, because that could cost you.
Doesn't have it all together yet, or maybe finds it to his advantage to be evasive. But
yeah, it's okay to be evasive as long as it's to your advantage.
Your point is certainly well taken. For someone who is a genuine Christ follower, he must confess Christ before.
Unless it's to your advantage to be evasive.
Jesus said, anyone who denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God.
Unless it's to your advantage to be evasive.
Whoever confesses me before men will be confessed before the angels of God.
Unless you find it to your advantage to be evasive.
So we need to be bold.
Unless you find it to your advantage to be evasive.
Proclaimers of the gospel of.
Unless you find it to your advantage to be evasive. Are you getting it?
Christ.
Very fair. That's a great take. Appreciate that, Bill. Let's take a look at clip number 7.
Okay, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing we're probably about an hour in. This is where I really want to stop and cut it off right here, but I'm going to try to plow through the rest of this, but let me drink some water. You're going to hear a lot more slurping noises in this video because I'm drained. Okay. Whew. Here we go.
My final claim is that atheists accept Christian morality, but deny the religion's foundational stories.
Okay. This may be the most trivial claim. It could be the most wrong claim. I don't know. Each one of these claims competes for that. It could be the most provocative and not in a good way claim. Possibly the most disingenuous claim. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of a throat break and let this play for a few moments. I'll try to keep my thoughts in mind.
Hi there.
It's very nice to meet you.
What's
I'm
your
Ian.
name?
I'm Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Yes. So God says that you can own people as property. He says that you can beat them with a rod too. He commands genocide in Deuteronomy, in Numbers, and in Samuel. I mean, they have a goddamn baby barbecue in Numbers. Like, is all of this in line with Christian ethics?
All right, Dr. Craig, this is one you've clearly heard before and dealt with,
Yeah.
but is Peterson right that atheists accept Christian morality but deny the religion's foundational stories? And what do you make of this young man jumping right in on slavery and genocide?
Yeah. I think that Peterson's claim is, again, a very plausibly true socio-historical claim. Everybody knows that Western civilization and its mores have been shaped by Christianity.
Okay. All right, let's just go ahead and take that on. Two ways you could go with this. If you just wanted to win a debate, you could simply say, I'll grant you all of that. So what? So what is the ultimate point that you're trying to make? Because Christians who try to make this argument, they don't really have a point. They're just trying to win a trivial got you moment. And so I think a lot of people are hesitant to address this or don't know how to address this. And so they stumble with it. And I think that you don't have to stumble with it. You could just say, okay, if that's true, what's your point? They will still win the debate because there is no there at the end of the day. However, I don't grant that claim. I don't grant that Western civilization is shaped by Christian morality. Before I get to why I don't grant it, there's another way that you could grant it trivially. If you just don't feel like having the argument, which is fine, I suppose. But you could say, well, in that way, every civilization, every part of the world is shaped by the religious or socio-historical mores of that place and time. All right, so you know who's not shaped by Christian morality? Muslims. Right? The Middle East, not so much. Jerusalem, not so much. Also the Middle East, not Muslim, but not Christians. India, not so much. And so this is why Christians have to be very specific about the location. Well, it's the Western world. The assumption is that the rest of the world is just fucked up. They got no morals, or no morals worth talking about. It's only the good people of the West. So when we focus on the good people of the West, then we can say that their morality, that everybody accepts the morality of their socio-historical heritage. Okay, so you could just shrug and say, okay, Christianity has dominated the West. We view everything that we view, not just morality, everything we view through a Christian lens, because that's our socio-historical heritage. That's trivial, because that's true of everyone's socio-historical heritage in the world. So you have not made a point. You have not made a point that Christianity must be right because everyone accepts some facet of it because you were born in that matrix of ideology. And with that, I still would not grant it. All right? But that's just me. I'm very happy to take the tougher path and argue that it's simply not true. So, for instance, Jews do not accept Christian morality. Because, and I know it's hard to keep this straight and recognize this based on what you're taught these days, based on how the media deals with it, based on how Christian publications deal with it. Jews are not Christians. There may be some Jews who have converted to Christianity. That's a small number. Jews are not Christian. They don't claim your Christian morality. Plenty of Muslims live in the West. They see your Christian morality. They live around it. They do not claim your Christian morality. So what you're saying, even if there was some truth in it, can only deal with a particular region and only a particular group of people within that region. But we can go further. What do you call Christian morality? Do you mean just religious morality? You can't mean that, because other religions have different ideas about morality. It's not universal like you like to pretend. So what are you calling Christian morality? I genuinely do not know. I could come up with some things, but if there were two Christians listening to me, one would say I was right and one would say I was wrong. What is Christian morality so that it is separate and distinct from some other religion's morality? Can you tell me that? So it has to be Christian morality, but not Jewish morality, where Christianity comes from. So explain Christian morality to me. Those of you who make that argument, you can't do it because you're never challenged to do it. I know you can't do it, though, because I have challenged you. But I think we can go even further than that. We can look at what evangelicals say about themselves. When Christian preachers and posters want to feel holier than everyone else in their group, they will just tell you that from their best observations and deep scientific studies, social science, that even most evangelicals have a non-Christian worldview. Now, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because there is no such thing as a pure bucket of Christianity. There is no such thing as a pure Christian worldview. Christianity didn't just syncretize Judaism. but it syncretized and sucked up almost everything in its path, so that whatever Christianity used to be in the first century, it ain't that here. Western Christianity doesn't look anything like that. And so, Bill, what you're calling Christian morality is not, according to evangelicals, Christian morality at all. Now, they seldom say exactly what true Christianity is. They're quick to identify what it isn't. So, again, you're going to have to show me this vat of pure Christianity that atheists are drawing on before this argument even gets off the ground. You can't do it. I've tried to get Christians to do it. They cannot. But the second part of this claim is also ridiculous, maybe more ridiculous. And that is, atheists, they're borrowing from Christianity, to have any kind of morals at all. But they don't accept the foundational stories, right? And Christians are like, tisk, tisk, you're practically Christian, and yet you reject the things that make your morality make sense. Do not fall for this. Once again, as Americans especially, this is true for other places, but especially the place that once was called the melting pot, we accept all kinds of ideas from all kinds of people all over the world and history. Because America is not and never has been purely Christian. So, just as a for instance, math, that language that seems to describe reality, we have the Arabs to thank for that. Maybe that's why we call them Arabic numbers. So we describe our reality thanks to a people whose founding stories we do not accept. Oh, so it is possible, after all, to maybe glean good ideas from places without accepting the mythology. We have roads. We can thank the Romans for the roads. But you know what we don't have to do to appreciate the roads? We don't have to accept the mythologies of Romulus, do we? No, I don't think we do. And that list would go on and on and on. In fact, think about the days of the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All of this is really the accretion of the religion of other cultures. So we can appreciate the days of the week and not accept the mythology of where it came from, right? Again, if we come back to the claim, they're taking advantage of our truths, of our good morals, and they don't accept the foundational stories on which the morality depends. And I would say that even if you were right about the first part, which you are not, you sound like a fool with the second part. And there are definitely people in the world who will claim to be culturally Christian and reject the founding stories because that's just bullshit. Because they understand that you can have a good idea and not accept all of the garbage and baggage that might come along with that idea. Well, you can listen to this show and get a good idea from me without accepting everything that I believe. And so this is the basis, if you will, of this absolutely absurdist claim that is meant to be nothing more than argumentative and poking a finger in the eye of the other side if they can't think quickly enough to move around it. Now, I wonder why Bill is not upset by this question, seeing how passionately he hates gotcha moments.
Christianity has been the most powerful influence in the West. And so even unbelievers like these students who are born and raised in Western culture will have largely adopted Christian values. I think as a socio-historical claim, that is almost indisputable. And so I think Peterson's claim is right and isn't refuted by this student trying to show inconsistencies in Old Testament ethics. Now, watching this, it occurred to me that Peterson could easily deflect this objection.
Okay. Yeah, here we go. You thought that he was done with the whole evasive stuff? You thought that Sean sent him a memo saying, Ixnay with the evasive. Well, no. William Lane Craig is about to double down on it because he's an old white man of privilege, a great man who also doesn't, I think, have all of it together anymore, and he doesn't give a shit. So he's just going to say all the quiet parts out loud.
That Peterson could easily deflect this objection, if I'm not mistaken, by saying that his claim was about Christian ethics.
He could easily deflect the question. Why would William Lane Craig want someone to deflect an important question? Why? He's going to spend some time on this.
Isn't that correct? Wasn't his claim that Christian morality?
Yeah, he talked about Christian morality
So far undefined, by the way.
and the foundational stories being at the religion's basis.
Could you repeat that again, Sean? You froze momentarily.
Oh, yeah. So he's saying that atheists accept Christian morality, but deny the religion's
Right.
foundational stories.
Right. So what he could say is, look, young man, I'm not talking about the Old Testament. I'm talking about the New Testament. I'm
not talking about all that bad stuff. Oh, you're trying to bring up some stuff that would prove me wrong. No, you misunderstand. This is his, by the way, his MO with the moral argument as well. We'll probably see that before the summer is out. His whole MO is to just evade and deflect all of the hard stuff. And those of you who have been hanging around the board for years have seen it in just about every Christian that has come around. At some point, they've got to put the deflector on because that's a hard question, and they're all taking notes right now as they sit in the William Lane Craig School of Evasion and Deflection. Oh, hey, young man, kid, we're not talking about that Jewish crap. Doesn't bother me at all.
My claim was about Christian ethics,
which I'm still waiting for an explanation, a description of, a definition of. I'm never going to get it.
The ethics of Jesus and the church. And so these incidents that you're protesting against aren't part of Christian ethics.
They're not part of Christian ethics. Now, the ethics of Jesus, if Jesus is God, would be shown in the places where God was literally telling the people this is what I want you to do. He's demonstrating his ethics there. Now, if you want to distance Jesus from God, you go ahead and do that. You take that ball and run with it. I'll help you run with it and finish off what's left of your career, old man. I mean, it's okay to call him old man because he uses young man in that kind of way too. So it's okay. You can also call him an asshole because he doesn't mind calling people asses. So if you really think that you're helping Christians out here by telling them to divorce Jesus from Yahweh, I think what you're actually doing is describing why so many people are fleeing your faith and rejecting your God because they've seen this trick before and they don't buy it. Or if they do buy it, it's because they haven't learned yet that you think that Jesus and God are the same person. But once they get that, it doesn't take long to say, hey, wait a minute. I thought you said that stuff didn't have anything to do with Jesus. I think he's lying to us.
And so what the student would have to show is that Western culture hasn't been shaped by New Testament ethics, and
please explain what that is.
That he himself hasn't absorbed the values of that culture. It just is irrelevant to the claim to point to these atrocities in the Old Testament.
Mm.
I had a couple thoughts on this one.
Sure, go ahead.
Peterson does a really good job in his book, We Who Wrestle with God, of working through these grand Old Testament stories of Elijah, of Jonah, of Moses. And he mentions some of these troubling stories, but does so in light of the larger narrative of the Old Testament. So he studied the Old Testament in depth and asks, how do these stories fit in with the theme of the Old Testament, the character of the Old Testament God? And my challenge just would be for people who are watching this.
Hang on. How do you derive the character of the Old Testament of God without the stories that depict the God saying and doing things? I'll wait while someone answers that. You don't have to rewind it. I'll ask it again. How do you derive the character of the Old Testament God without the stories that depict him saying and doing things?
Rather than starting with the troubling passages, I would never say ignore them, but this young man jumps up and goes, genocide, slavery, and those are tough passages.
Wait a minute, they're not tough passages. Do not accept that framing either, people. These are not tough passages, but if they are tough passages, then it sucks to be you. These are easy passages. You see, they're only tough if you're trying to tell a story about the character of God without these passages being a part of it. Then it's tough. But if what you want to do is see who God is based on what he says and does in the book, then these are easy passages. They are some of the most easy to understand passages in all the Bible. No philosophical muckety-muck going on here. This is just straight up, this is what God says, this is what God does. Tell me, Sean, why that is a tough passage for you.
I want to say, let's slow down in the way Peterson has done this and really try to understand them within their context and time and place.
What do you mean within their context? The tough passages start with the first 3 chapters of Genesis. What context are you talking about in their time and their place? Oh, you see, if we take all of social science and all of world religion and anthropology, all the stuff that the Bible doesn't really talk about, if we take all of that into account after we've got our terminal degree at some fundy Christian college, then we will have enough information to ignore the tough passages and get the real context and know the real character of the real God.
First, And then I think we'll have more tools to begin to make sense of them.
No, not tools to make sense of them. I just listened to Craig here. What you will gain is more tools to evade them and deflect from them.
For anybody watch this, I say just hit pause. Those are fair questions. Bill and I have dealt with them.
Then why are we hitting pause? Why? You see, this is just another deflection. This is just a kinder, gentler kind of deflection, Sean. When you say, well, hit pause on that one because I think it's tough. You're going to actually tell your opponent in a debate, well, I need you to hit pause on that one because that one hurts.
In different times and in different ways. But would you lean in first and straw man the God of the Old Testament?
Hang on. How is that straw manning the God? By pointing out the things that even you believe actually happened. How is that straw manning the God?
Testament, and in light of the New Testament, like you said, before doing so.
Hang on. What Old Testament character was able to understand God in light of the New Testament? Can you just give me one name? No, you can't, because they understood God in light of their interactions, with God.
That would be one point I would make. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to this one, Bill?
Well, I just want to emphasize again that these students are raising objections that are not pertinent to the claims.
Right. Again, here's Bill. Okay. Thanks for all that stuff you said, but what you really should do, because that stuff is problematic, you'll eventually have to get back to it. So Bill is saying, what you really should do is just deflect.
That Peterson is making. The claim is that even atheists accept Christian morality while they reject the foundational stories behind them. And that seems to me to be very, very plausibly true.
Let's go back just a moment. So while Sean was saying, you're just jumping into slavery, and Bill is saying, yeah, because that's just Old Testament shit right there. And this is about New Testament. I don't have the passage pulled up. I promised myself that I would not go into a bunch of Bible reading here, but I will just leave this here in the New Testament. The New Testament instruction, New Testament morality. To slaves was to love your masters and obey your masters as if obeying Jesus Christ himself with all sincerity of heart. That's the New Testament on slavery. Even the Old Testament wasn't that perverse. The New Testament, not only does it not clean up any of the Old Testament stuff, it makes it more disgusting. Now, can we talk about slavery?
In Western culture, and nothing the student said refutes.
Absolutely, we had slavery in Western culture. And do you know who was most vocal about maintaining slavery? It was the Christians. And when they lost that, they were the most vocal about Jim Crow laws and social separation between the races. And when they couldn't have that, they were most vocal about segregation in schools, public and private, and universities. Segregation forever. They were most vocal about it. They were the last of the universities to integrate. They were the last to give up that fight. And you mean to tell me that that hasn't been also a part of what has shaped Western civilization? This Juneteenth, sir, why don't you ask yourself why the hell we have a Juneteenth in the first place? Now, can I talk about slavery?
That socio-historical claim that Peterson is making.
Apparently
One
not.
quick question for you. The way he framed this gave me a little pause. Is I wouldn't ground Christian ethics in the foundational stories. Like you, I would ground it in the character of God.
Here again, I appreciate your effort. It's a good dance, Sean Astaire. To say, let's get away from the stories. Oh, for Pete's sake, whatever you do, enough with the stories. God's character can't be found in the stories of what he said or did.
And we know about the character of God in many ways as expressed through the stories and through the scriptures. So I think that's where he invites analysis of the stories instead of the character of God, metaphysically speaking, and somewhat opens himself up for these critiques.
Yeah, because metaphysically, where things are just make-believe, we can just define God as all good. But when we get to the stories, can't do that anymore, so get away from the stories and let's go to the metaphysical analysis. How about it?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
All right, let's take a look at the next one.
People like Graham Oppie make arguments about the incompatibility of omniscience and free will, that if God created this world, if he chose this world instead of that world, then he makes it causally inevitable every single action that you were going to make. If he made a world where we were just electrons in love, then none of this would have happened. But by making us in this world, knowing exactly what's going to happen in the future, it makes all of those events inevitable, which means that they're all causally determined, which means that we have no free will. If you believe in an all-good God or an all-knowing God that made everything.
Well, have it your way.
I know for sure you've thought about this one because I've heard you respond over and over again to it. So bottom line is omniscience incompatible with free will.
The student makes a fundamental confusion between.
Well, we've got an upgrade here. Is the student now. I'm tempted to just skip over this because it's pointless. Completely different subject. I don't remember in the debate how it got to this point. And so I really don't care about a debate in the middle of a debate about determinism. So I don't think we're going to do this, because if I give this any attention at all, 80% of the comments are going to be about determinism, free will, and I think we will have lost the plot. So this is about morality and such. Let's see what we have here.
With human free will.
There are different kinds of truth claims, right? There's propositional truth claims, which are the truth claims of what you say. And then there's embodied truth claims, which is the truth claims of what you do.
Okay, really? Really? So there's a difference between propositions, things you actually believe, and things you actually do, and that these are somehow different categories of truth. I don't really understand where he's going here at this time, at least my first time through. But I just wanted to pause there so that you can understand what first gave me pause.
That should be prioritized. Optimally, what you say and what you do would be brought into harmony. But I would say if you had to prioritize, it should be what you attend to and what you act first. And that's what Christ actually says in the Gospels, because he points to the Pharisees, for example, who say all the right things, but don't do any of the right things, and points out very clearly that that's not acceptable.
All right, Dr. Craig, are there different kinds of truth claims, propositional claims about what we say, truth claims about what we do, and should we prioritize, especially in light of Jesus' critique of the Pharisees, doing the right things?
Here, I think Jordan Peterson is philosophically confused. To talk about a truth claim is to talk about a proposition.
Okay, that's as close as William Lane Craig is ever going to come to saying Jordan Peterson is full of shit. Okay, but you can't say that about a great man. You can say it about some random kid. Not about Jordan Peterson.
that is either true or false. It either corresponds to reality or it does not. And so there's really only one kind of truth claim. There will be these propositional truth claims. What he's talking about, I think, here is living authentically what you say you believe. And if you do not live out what you affirm, that is hypocrisy. That's an inauthentic human existence. And I think he's quite right to say that as human beings, we want to be authentic people who live consistently with our propositional beliefs. And as you know, Sean, I've argued that the atheist can't really do that consistently and happily. That if he lives consistently with his worldview, he will be profoundly unhappy. He will.
Okay. This is, I don't know if it's a faith statement from William Lane Craig and Peterson, who believes the same thing, and other Christians who say the same thing, or whether they're just lying. And honestly, I've been back and forth on this. I think they're lying. They may have lied to the point that they now believe it, but they know they have to say it, because if they don't, if it's not true, then their claims about Christianity are dead. It's dead. They can pack up and go home. If you can be an atheist and live a fulfilled life, from their perspective, this isn't true of all Christians, but from this kind of Christian's perspective, if you can do that and live consistently and be at peace and a fully realized, fully fulfilled human being without Christianity, then they have been shown to be wrong about the most fundamental things that they believe. So, what do we get from him? William Lane Craig insists that either I am a liar, I am miserable, or I'm a secret Christian. Those are the only options he's got. He does not have in front of him the option that he might be wrong.
Be in despair because his worldview implies that there is ultimately no value, no meaning, no purpose. And that is an unlivable view unless you are.
First of all, that is not an unlivable view, but it's also a straw man of the view that atheists actually have. They simply don't believe that their purpose and value comes from a God. Now, what you are suggesting is that you can have no purpose and value without a God, but that's your problem. Okay? We can take up that proposition and you would be immediately proven wrong by the people who have purpose and value and who do not recognize your God. All right? So, in order for you to be consistent, you have to then say some things about atheists that we have been screaming at you for decades, but you're wrong. That's not true. I'm not a Christian. I don't have any value or purpose that would come from a God. Don't recognize any such, and yet I am happy and fulfilled. And the Christian has to put their fingers in their ears and say, no, you're miserable. You're just so miserable you don't know it.
In deep depression and despair. So what happens is that the atheist, as Peterson himself said earlier, typically affirms objective moral values. He thinks
Nope.
his life is purposeful. He thinks he and the lives of his children are meaningful, even
which does not come from a God.
though he has no basis for it.
You just don't want to hear our basis for it, but it wouldn't matter if we had no basis for it, because we still believe that the lives of our families, wives, children, puppies are valuable.
And this is the definition of inauthentic human existence.
No, it's not. That's the definition of strawmanning, of gaslighting, of lying to save your position, you goddamn dumbass.
think that the atheist is caught in a
It's okay to call him a dumbass, okay? That because he called Danny a smartass. It's okay. We're just reciprocating.
Terrible predicament, what I call the human predicament, that he's forced to live an inauthentic human existence because of the unlivability of an atheistic worldview.
Do I need to share with you statistical information about the number of Christians who have sank into deep depression because of the unlivability created from their worldview and committed suicide? Do we need to talk about that? Or can we just bypass that and say, you're lying?
With its implications.
Yeah, we can just say you're lying.
That's a great challenge for the atheistic world.
Not a challenge.
I think this also gives a challenge for Christians. Os Guinness has written on a number of occasions that he thinks the biggest barrier that turns people away from the faith is hypocrisy. When we say one thing and we do another. And am I talking with people who used to be in the church? Many have such a bad experience with Christians and don't understand how if the things we believe are true and we live differently, why they should become a Christian. So I think that's a huge challenge. I hope Christians watching this will hit pause and make sure we're not saying one thing and doing another. I think Peterson also here in other ways, it pushes back against kind of an easy believism we see in the church. That says, I can just believe and get fire insurance, live however I want to. But on the other end, then it can become a faith of works and actions, like you said, that is a works-based righteousness that Paul, I think, clearly rejects in Ephesians 2:8-9 when he says, grace, it is by grace we have been saved through faith. And in John 6:29, he says, this is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent. So ideally, as Christians, let's line up our actions with our beliefs. That's the challenge for all of us. Bill, as always, this is fun. Do you have any just last thoughts or words of encouragement or anything you want to say at the end?
Yeah, because you are a great man.
Well, I would just encourage all of our viewers to take a intro course in elementary logic. I think that these students would be greatly helped if they understood the basic 9 rules of inferential logic. I think many of them lack honed critical thinking skills. And so a basic course in logic would be very helpful, I think, to these students and to our viewers.
Oh, you're saying these students in the debate are the ones who lacked critical thinking skills. Did we watch the same debate? Why are you still gobbling Peterson's knob? What is the matter with you, old man?
That's a great word of advice. And I know you would agree with me on this, that this isn't just because they're atheist students. You would give the same encouragement to 20 Christian students and all students. In fact, probably more so.
Good save, Sean.
Christian students, even than atheist students. My last encouragement.
Absolutely. I want the Christian students to be the ones that are the true critical thinkers and logical reasoners.
Amen. I would end by saying I enjoy these Jubilee dialogues. I imagine myself sitting there saying, what would I say? How would I respond?
Yes.
And there's a reason they get so many views, but it also can invite a certain kind of like, I want to own somebody. I want this viral moment. I'm cheering for somebody and cheering against somebody. So I don't want Christians or Christian apologists watching something like this thinking this is how we necessarily ought to communicate in conversation. But I'd also invite people to watch it. At the very end, Peterson got to pick somebody to have 10-minute dialogue with him on the contention of their choice. And he chose a younger African-American woman, in part because she was really thoughtful, but she also engaged him in a way that wasn't trying this gotcha, own you.
Okay, if she was so engaging, and the conversation was so good, and your team is the one that handpicked the clips, Why don't you have anything from her?
A way
Yeah.
that was like trying to benefit the conversation, and she wasn't voted off for a while. So if you watch this, and I hope people do, watch it through the lens of what lessons can I learn to better engage people and talk about it from there. Bill, this is the third time you've done a reaction video with me. We will have you back when you're available and something else like this drops. So for those of you watching, pick up the new Systematic Philosophical Theology Volume 1 and 2 is out. We're going to have Dr. Craig on.
All right, that's enough sales. I got to tell you, what little respect I used to have for Bill, I no longer have after this. He is yet another old white man who has been deemed a great man, the people who are around him and care about his reputation should take away his keyboard, his webcam, and his microphone. He's done. He's done. He's not helping you. If promoting Christianity is the thing that you want to do, he's hurting you at this point. And if you cared about him, you'd step in just like Biden's advisors stepped in and said, no, you're done. Okay, Christians don't seem to have the ability to do that. And this is the time when someone should step in and say, no, Bill, you're not going to do that. You're done. But if his publicist is anything like him, well, there's no hope for that at all. Well, there it is. skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Log in to your Discuss account, discuss away. Send me an email, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. Until next time, I will see you in the comments. Until next time, I'm out.